Hello, and welcome to Openly Gamer Theater's production of The Stygian Fragment, a Call of Cthulhu roleplay drama.
This is Mike, and I'm playing Father Evan Daniel Leary.
Hello, this is Dan, and I am playing Phineas Lockwood.
This is Brandon. I'll be playing Clarence Rouse.
This is Shannon. I'm playing Julia Margaret Barnes.
This is Jayson. I am playing Jack Houston Smith.
And I'm Shawn. I'm playing Robert Louis Covington.
Be warned, the following content may not be suitable for all audiences.
A message waited for Rouse and I when we reached the Plaza Hotel. It was from Betty. Smith and Leary were wrapping up their research at the St. Louis University Library and would take a taxi to meet us at the Falstaff mansion for dinner. We decided to wait out front with Lockwood and Covington for the car that Falstaff promised, which arrived promptly at 7 p.m. 30 minutes later, we arrived at the Falstaff mansion, a huge white house in the Benton Park area of the city. The driver pulled up to the front of the house where tuxedoed servants awaited us at the curb with large umbrellas open and ready to hurry us up the steep front steps and inside. We were then escorted to a large atrium where Charles Falstaff stood at the head of an immense dining table. He smiled at us and motioned for us to enter and take seats near him. I sat closest to Falstaff, not wanting to miss any detail of the dinner conversation. Unfortunately, as is common among those of society, small talk dominated the first course. Though it was the absolute best caviar I have had, I was keen on getting down to business. It was shortly after the hors d'oeuvres were taken away that Jack and Father Leary arrived. Throughout dinner, either Clarence or myself would try to steer the conversation toward the reason we were there, but Falstaff would have none of it. It was actually impressive. Charles Falstaff was a master of conversation and decorum. It seemed as if he was intentionally dodging us in an effort to draw out the night. At one point, as we grew more impatient, he held out a hand to silence us, pointed to his ear, while he nodded toward the servant door. We understood instantly. Someone was listening. Undoubtedly, we would have to retire to a more secluded area before we could talk candidly, which occurred shortly after dinner, when we adjourned to a sitting room just off the atrium for cigars. Charles followed us in the large room, closing the door behind him. He looked at each of us in turn and smiled.
This room is a bit more secure, so I'm not too concerned with being overheard. As I informed Mr. Rouse and Miss Barnes earlier today, it is my belief that the men that you have seen doing the work on my home may be involved in illegal activity, and I'm hoping that you will be able to discern if my suspicion has merit.
Well, what sort of illegal things do you mean?
Well, Mr. Smith, my initial assumption is that they are using my home to bootleg alcohol.
Seems reasonable.
The theft of my property by a man under their employ also concerns me. I'm sure Mr. Rouse has already told you of my thoughts in this matter, but frankly, I cannot see a connection. If they are using my home for alcohol production or storage, then why cover up the truth of the theft? It is all very strange. My hope is that you will uncover some detail that I have not.
We sat in silence listening to the thunder rolling outside, while the men smoked their cigars. Falstaff eyed me a few times, knowing that I understood how outside the norm it was for a group of men to share after-dinner cigars with a woman in the room. He never gave me the impression that he disapproved of my presence, merely enjoyed the oddity. It hardly made me a suffragist, but I wasn't about to wait by myself elsewhere in that spooky house. Smith cleared his throat, drawing Falstaff's attention.
Mr. Falstaff, how do you get to the basement of your mansion?
The basement? Oh, well, the best way to get there is the back steps.
And the caverns underneath St. Louis. I've read before that the Falstaff Brewing Company used to use the caverns to keep their beer cool.
Yes. My grandfather built the brewery directly above the cave for precisely that purpose.
You have access to those caves?
I do. This house resides over a large portion of the cavern system. It allowed my family access to the brewery without ever having to venture outside. My father was quite fond of using it in the wintertime.
And where's the brewery at from here?
Charles casually indicated south with an open palm.
So it's possible that these people could be stealing from your house and going through the caves.
It is possible, but unlikely. I keep the door to those stairs locked at all times. I have the only key.
There's only one key.
Yes, Mr. Smith. I possess the only one. As I stated to Mr. Rouse earlier, though, you are welcome to any area of my home to carry out your investigation, including that stairwell, should you need.
Where we're at now, do I see anything in the house that piques my interest in terms of artifacts?
There's a rather large library.
No.
I think we may need to spend a few minutes on the surface, but if you want to split up, that's certainly a prerogative, Mr. Rouse.
There was a book here that Julia wanted to look at, or am I totally off base there?
Ah, yes, my brother's book. I took the liberty of setting it out for you after our last conversation. The rest of you are more than welcome to accompany us, if you like. The library is one of the more comfortable rooms in my house. It is where I spend most of my evenings.
Mr. Rouse, this might be worth your while.
All right, I'll come with you.
We followed Charles to the library, a room slightly smaller than the sitting room, but far cozier. Fully stocked bookshelves lined 3 of the walls, with the 4th dominated by a large fireplace. Falstaff flipped a switch, causing the chandelier above us to blink with electric light, and then closed the door. We got settled in the many stuffed armchairs arrayed around the room. Smith and Leary marveled at some of the works on the shelves. Rouse, the only one of us who remained standing, nodded to Charles and frowned.
There's no alcohol in here at all?
I can arrange to have some brought to you, Mr. Rouse.
I would very much appreciate it.
Very well. Please, make yourselves at home, and I will return momentarily.
Yeah, while he goes out and arranges some alcohol, maybe we should catch up on what we've done the day.
That's a good idea.
How does this house make me feel? Like, what's the setup of this place?
It gives you the creeps. It's way too big and way too empty. It's like this dude and his servants, and there's nobody else.
And it's all echoes.
Yeah,
and
very much. A lot of
creaks.
the library is stocked. The sitting room was stocked, but there's a lot of stuff like covered with sheets.
Kind of like Wayne Manor.
Yes.
But, Mr. Smith, Father, what'd you guys find out today at the library?
Well, we did find a copy of the Black Book.
Interesting.
Is it with you?
No, we were not allowed to take it out of the library. Well, we didn't even really try. But I did make copious notes and sketches from the book as what I thought were appropriate and necessary.
What did you deem appropriate and necessary?
Well, in Chapter 11, for example, they talk about an ancient tribe in what is now Hungary, and there was a city there called Zusthal.
Does that name ring a bell?
It was mentioned in the
It's
poem.
mentioned in the
I
poem.
think what my associate here is trying to say is that they worshipped a toad-like idol
I was
on a
getting to
monolith
that.
that was similar to one worshipped in a lost city.
That is correct. And we were also able to find that in many fringe archaeological circles, there's a belief that the mound city across the river here in Cahokia
Okay, yes.
was built on top of another city, an ancient city. And if this, of course, is unfounded, there's really no concrete evidence to suggest that this is true. But nevertheless, and I've also put in inquiries to the man who wrote the poems, to my university at Miskatonic.
Justin Jeffrey.
That's correct. And matter of fact, my contact at Miskatonic, a close associate of mine, is related to Mr. William Webb, who was known to have been in St. Louis around the turn of the century and was here for...
Yeah, you mentioned the
Right, I remember
disturbance at the convention.
This is correct.
Was there anything else that you could find out about the disturbance?
Just that he was vindicated later. It turned out that he was the information that he had claimed at that time was true.
The more he talks, the more he brings all this stuff up. I just kind of like I start chain smoking, and
when he pulls one out, I light it up.
I've already said I've been smoking this entire time.
The room's starting to get rather hazy.
Well, the information that he had provided at that time was that the Eskimos were this degenerate tribe of Eskimos were involved in dark arts and ritual sacrifice, and
it's called supper.
Supper, right? I don't think it involved seals. I think it may have involved human sacrifice. But
of young children?
I suppose it's possible.
I'm sorry,
but
to interrupt, go ahead.
At any rate, a detective in New Orleans
I start writing.
Was able to find another idol that lent credence to what Professor Webb had claimed that the Eskimos were doing.
Dr. Covington, what did you find out about the...
This girl was abused before she was killed in this car accident.
What do you mean, abused?
She had bruisings around her neck, around her wrists. She had 2 fingers missing on her left hand. She also had that circular burn on her back. But none of this was in the report.
Could you show me what the mark looked like on her back?
Yeah, here, give me this.
Covington reached for a pin from the corner writing desk he sat at and sketched a swirled symbol. The same we found all over the wall of Dorian Daly's apartment, as well as in the invitation to the Black-Veiled Prophet Ball.
So she had that, was it cut into her? Burned into her?
Burned into her back.
Could you tell?
And all this was done before she was killed. And then her last dying words was, find the boy and the baby.
Oh, do you think that could be the candy company baby and the
the
Heiberg baby and the candy company
boy?
It could be.
It's got to be.
We think it may be associated with the Black Veil Prophet.
She was in an argument that evening before she died with her boyfriend.
I turned my full attention to the book Charles had laid out for me. Before that, I was just idly flipping through it. Remnants of Lost Empires by Otto Dostman. To me, it's pretty dry stuff. I showed it to Smith, who got really excited. He looked over my shoulder as I read, which annoyed me greatly, to the point that I told him to go on and screw. Jack walked over to where the Dostman work was previously shelved and let out a rather effeminate squeak. I scowled at him, calling him Ethel, and he smiled, laying the book he had found gently on the end table beside me, and took a seat in the chair on the other side. His eyes sparkled with delight as he nodded toward his find, took it up, and began flipping through the pages.
This is a copy of Herbert Whitman's Origin of the Mississippi, and this is a very rare tome. This is there was a very limited run of these. This is a valuable book. This is fascinating. The author, Herbert Whitman, he discredits another archaeologist, a contemporary of his named Reginald Jacobs, who was a proponent of the Zeuxal theory. He claimed to have found an idol before an archway. Whitman says it was a hoax. They've never been able to find the archway or the idol.
Where does it claim it was found?
In the lowest chamber in Monk's Mound.
Where's that?
It's across the river. It's as I mentioned it yesterday. It's a very large earthen structure, the base of which is bigger than the largest pyramid in Egypt.
I've been there as well, and there are no archways.
Certainly not on the surface. I'm assuming the archway he speaks of was excavated, that it was underground. And it's those mounds are filled with bodies in graves. Many of them are just nothing but graves. It's almost filled entirely with bodies, some of which people were buried alive, a human sacrifice.
Suddenly, the door opened and Charles walked back in with a crystal decanter of amber liquid atop a silver serving platter.
My apologies, Professor. Please, do not let me interrupt you.
Oh, no, not at all. I was fascinated by your copy of Herbert Whitman's Origin of the Mississippi, and this is a rare tome.
Oh, Billy collected all sorts of rare books. Many of them are beyond my interest, but they remind me of him.
Billy?
My brother, William Jr.
I would suggest, Mr. Falstaff, that a tome such as this rightfully belongs in a collection more suited to academics, perhaps St. Louis University.